Welcome to Instruction Discussion, our weekly look at the latest topics and trends in education affecting schools here on Long Island and schools around the world. Whether you're a teacher, parent, or student, listen for tips and strategies to help you navigate the educational landscape. There's a bell. It's time to start today's Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello, I'm Kevin Boston Hill, and welcome to Instruction Discussion, where each week we will examine a recent trend or development in education and its impact on Long Island. In today's environment, where we are constantly running, literally and figuratively, and we need to take a break from everything, it gives me great pleasure to bring you someone today who will allow you to take that break and perhaps develop a new talent at the same time. Renowned Long Island equine artist, teacher, and illustrator, Joanne Wayulo Pierce, understands how life can feel impossible, and she wants to use art to help contribute to the solution. Joanne would like to share her craft with the world through her new video series, Pierce to Heart Lessons. Welcome to Instruction Discussion on 90.3 WHPC. Ms. Pierce.
Hi, great to be with you. Thanks so much.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure, my pleasure. But before we get into today's class, let's find out a little bit more about you. So kind of, where did you start your career? How do you do what you do? What got you into that led us up to Pierce to Heart Lessons?
Well, it's been a long road. I was always into art since I was at least 6 years old. I come from a family of artists on both sides. And the first drawing I remember making, I was 6 years old, and it was a horse because I loved horses since as long as I could remember. And my focus throughout elementary school, junior high, high school, and college at SUNY New Paltz was art. And I majored in art education, had a fantastic experience at Poughkeepsie Day School for my student teaching experience. So after that, I was involved in the art world in the crazy 80s. I also was teaching and substitute teaching. So that brings me to having a family and raising my kids. And that got me into colored pencil because I didn't have much time for my painting. And after the kids were grown, I began showing my art again. So I got back involved with, in addition to teaching, I got back involved with applying to galleries, having shows. My first real show was in 1985. It was 10 years after graduating. Mm-hmm. One of my fellow students put together a show called Since 10 Years up in Farmington Valley Art Center in Avon, Connecticut. And that was the beginning. Okay, nice. I think, and as we had, I alluded to during our off-air conversation, I know my initial or personal experience with the art world came from watching The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will reminisce about that time as well. And so it allowed me to kind of practice mindfulness before this mindfulness became a big thing. So tell everybody a little bit, how does your class and what you do kind of contribute to the mindfulness movement? Yes. Also back when you talk about Bob Ross, it brings me back to also remembering transcendental meditation. Transcendental meditation was big in the 70s when I was young as well, and the beginning of mindfulness. And what I like to create in my lessons is a feeling of safety, that you're in a place where you're going to learn the basics without judgment. A lot of people feel afraid of drawing because something might have been said when they were young, like you can't draw, or a teacher might have discouraged them. And so I want to create, not unlike Bob Ross, a quiet, peaceful space where people can learn the fundamentals of drawing, which I believe will add greatly to their lives in so many ways, children and adults, and have a half hour of that kind of peace that he was able to impart, and which makes him timeless. Because I know my son is 30 and his friends enjoy watching Bob Ross, even if they're not painting or drawing. He's just such a comfort. So I hope to give that to people as well, especially during this time.
Yes, I know this has been a very difficult time with it. So let's talk about that for a little bit. What made you decide to put together this video series? Was there anything that you saw, experienced, or what was the driving factor behind this series?
As I got back into the art world after raising my children, I had been thinking of opening a brick and mortar art school. And my children spoke with me about, Mom, really the world is online, and they introduced me to the whole world of the internet. Why don't we do that and reach more people? You can reach so many more people. So that was the impetus behind the Pierce the Heart lessons being online. And as a result, we've heard from people all over the world, which is so incredibly wonderful. And a year ago, we had produced a show in a studio that aired in November. And when we had to go into quarantine, we decided to amp that up. My son and I worked very hard during this time of isolation into making the live classes. And I had heard from so many people they needed something for their children to do. They needed something to help them fight the fear of this time. They needed something to de-stress. So when I saw that need for them to have some time for that, that's what also helped motivated me to create this series. In addition, people have teased me all my life that I was a Mrs. Fred Rogers, and not unlike Bob Ross, supposedly speak very softly, and I have a lot of warmth. So when people have told me they have enjoyed my lessons, we thought of doing more online. Does that answer your question?
No, that's perfect. Answers it perfectly. Thank you.
I'm not great at being succinct.
That's cool. All right. I'm sure our listeners would definitely appreciate the additional information that you're able to share, especially from the stories and the anecdotes that you share with us as well. You are listening to Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College Radio, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Kevin Boston Hill, and our guest today is Long Island-based equine artist Joanne Wayulo Pierce, host of the video series Pierce the Heart Lessons. Now, let's talk a little bit about your current inspiration for your art. And I know you said that you kind of live literally across the street from the beach and everything. So what kind of landscapes or does that provide some of the inspiration? Does the beach provide some of the inspiration for your artwork? And what are some of the other things that provide the inspiration?
Yes, the landscape has always been a huge inspiration for me. We went to the beach all the time as children, and so I always loved to do seascapes. I also was somehow just very drawn to huge fields of green and the east end of Long Island, the big sky. I just loved the landscape and wanted to recreate it. Thirdly, the horse has always been a huge inspiration to me. For some reason, they say it's in the blood and you're born with it. but that is a very big inspiration for me as well. And so the horse in the landscape, I do a lot of paintings of the horse in the landscape as well, in addition to commissions of horse portraits.
Mm-hmm.
And that's truly where I'm happiest, at my easel or outdoors painting the landscape or a seascape.
Okay, and I know you mentioned about you had a brick and mortar studio and you did some taping from the studio. Any thoughts of doing live shows from outdoors, or as you are doing live taping from outdoors?
Yes, we have plans to do that as soon as the world is open again at different locations on Long Island. We have some plans for some horse facilities, some vineyards, and some beaches, where I'll be giving lessons on the beginning. Most of my lessons are beginner lessons, but we will be getting into intermediate and advanced in the future.
Okay. So tell everybody, how can they get involved in what, is there a cost involved with the video series, or how can they get involved to actually take part in those lessons?
The lessons right now are free, and the live lessons are every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We right now have 10 episodes on Instagram and YouTube. So the lives, if people miss the lives, they can still see them afterwards. And everyone is welcome, all ages, adults, children. I try to gear my lessons to anybody of any age who's at a beginner level, but I also incorporate into my lessons some tips for more advanced students.
Mm-hmm. And you say it's on Instagram. What should they be looking for when they go into Instagram? What's your handle?
Pierce the Heart Lessons.
Okay, so at Pierce the Heart Lessons on Instagram is where they find you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience on that one.
Problem, because I definitely want to make sure people know where to find you for the live lessons, and then I guess they can go onto YouTube also and type in Pierce the Heart Lessons as well to be able to find the recordings of those lessons too.
Correct.
So, great, excellent. It's on Instagram Live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Correct.
And
it's 30 minutes.
And it's for 30 minutes. Okay. Great.
And then after it's live, it's on Instagram right away. And then for YouTube, it's also the same, at Pierce the Heart Lessons. Okay, very good. That is correct. I just wanted to make sure that was correct.
That's fine. I know we have a lot of listeners who are in the same category that you are, and they have a little difficulty navigating their way around the internet as well. So don't worry about it. So
we're all in good company, all of us. Well, yes, when you need technical help, you grab a kid, is how my friends and I joke.
When the VCRs first came out, like I know my parents could never get that blinking clock to stop. They always had to do it.
Yes, the year my mother got a microwave and a VCR in the same year, she said, "This is too overwhelming. I can't do this." And now I'm her age.
Let's talk a little bit about your typical audience, I guess, especially before the pandemic hit and we were forced to go indoors. What was your typical audience? What was the age group of the students or the people that you typically worked with?
Yes. Well, before this, I worked with ages pre-K through adult. And I taught adult advanced classes and down to pre-K, just beginning to learn how to manipulate the materials and enjoy the materials.
Have you gone into schools as well to work with the students there, or do they just primarily come to you?
Correct. Well, I've worked at private art schools on Long Island, had my own private classes where I would go to people's homes or facilities to present a class, let's say in horse drawing at a horse facility. I've also gone into public and private schools to give workshops.
As you are, and I'm sure everybody has been able to determine by now, you do have such a soft and soothing voice as you're going. But do you kind of market yourself also not just for giving the art lessons and to help people, whether it's they're beginners or intermediate artists, but do you also market that towards the, I guess, the therapy side, the therapeutic aspect or angle of artwork as well?
Yes, we do. We like to also promote how people feel when they're taking my lessons. And because the feedback I've gotten is that the word soothing, relaxing, comfortable, and the feeling of going into getting lost in a half hour of not having to think about anything else or any problems or everyday life. It's an escape into a really nice place to be.
No, that sounds wonderful. I know that, and that's something that I think people would welcome in this day, especially in this day and age, that we seem to just be moving and this all the hustle and bustle of everything and the stressors of life and just of living and everything that's come down. We tend to need as many outlets as possible, opportunities to escape from our everyday reality, even if just for 25 or 30 minutes. That might be those 30 minutes to somebody needs to recharge and to be able to go back and face the reality again.
Yes, that's so very important. I know psychologists say at least 10 minutes of absolute silence is helpful in our advanced capitalistic society. That is something, that's a big part of my mission, is to get back to creativity. It's something we all have as humans. And my philosophy of art is we had to create in order to survive. When in the olden times, so you had to make the vessel for your water. You had to create things to live. And it's such a part of our nature that we hardly have to do that now. And I believe that's a big part of anxiety and depression now. And I want to help bring people back to that joy and that need. And as a result, help to reconnect and a bit and do my part in helping people feel better.
That's definitely something that will help a lot of people. And as you've already said, you've gotten a lot of people from literally around the world who tune in just for that, to be able to allow you to help them to be soothing and so forth. But you are listening to Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Kevin Boston Hill, and our guest today is Long Island-based equine artist Joanne Wayulo Pierce, host of the video series Pierce to Heart Lessons. So, Joanne, let me also ask you, do you have a website where people might be able to go to kind of see some of the other pieces that you've done in the past as well? I know we have the Instagram Live and the YouTube page, but would there be a website that people can tune into to kind of get a really good sense of the work that you do and maybe register for a couple of classes?
Yes, I do have a website. It's www.jypfineart.com.
Excellent. So it's www.jypfineart.com.
Correct.
Okay, excellent. And what kind of information can they find there?
Info on there are several things that we're doing. They are commissions to order. They can see a gallery of my artwork.
So people can also, when they go to that site, they can actually purchase some of the artwork that's there, or call you in to do special designs and things.
Correct.
Okay.
And at Pierce the Heart Lessons, that's where we have the lives, but also the coloring book, and we're beginning to develop with a media company different things people can do on the go when everybody's on the go again. A section for a coloring book.
Oh, I think that's huge, having having that coloring book, because students as well as teenagers and adults love coloring, and they love to, whatever the medium is, whether it's crayon or marker or colored pencil, they love coloring because, again, it's the I guess is the soothing nature of the action of coloring and everything that people are drawn to.
Yes, and as we've seen in the stores, the explosion of the coloring books, it's another indication of that we need to get back to some of this basic creativity.
Yeah.
So I apologize. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. This is about you, but I was going to say that I can remember the color by numbers, and I think that's even something that's been making a comeback as of late.
Oh, those are, I always loved the paint by numbers. When I remember being a child and watching the grown-ups doing the paint by numbers, and I know that they're very collectible now. They're very, they have such a charm about them, and I've been collecting them. But they do have a really good instructional value to them, and I'm thrilled. And in addition to the coloring book, we have words of wisdom that are posted.
Okay.
My own, humbly, and from all the years of teaching and life experience, and quotes from people that I have admired all my life. So it spotlights my old work, where we've done some spotlighting of my work as a child and throughout the years, with some wonderful stories, and that I hope will be encouraging. Getting back to why do this, with arts funding being cut back.
Yes.
I wanted to do something in the world as well, because Sesame Street was created when I was a little bit older. And along those lines, I wanted something free out there for people. I did not grow up in a family with a lot of means. There wasn't money for art lessons. There was not money for horseback riding lessons. And my poor family, I drove them crazy because I couldn't understand why I couldn't have a horse on our 50 by 75 foot piece of property in Port Washington, my poor parents. But so I wanted to be able to have that available for young people of all ages, and to also impress that the drawing and the arts are so important to learning how to read and write. And a lot of people don't know that. So I'd like to get that message across, that curriculum now is going right into the academics, but the children need the scissors, the paste, the glue to learn how to write a letter eventually. Those are all building blocks to education. That's another reason why I want to.
And I think that's extremely important, as you said, that that's something that we're lacking. And when you're trying to create an environment where students are actually excelling academically, you can't forget the foundation, because now all we're doing is we're kind of picking out, or we're chopping out some of those foundational pieces when we start thinking about the arts and music and so forth, that those are things that help to support the academics. I mean, the studies have proven this time and time again that students who are musicians or artists actually outperform their peers on standardized tests and academically, because they've unlocked that portion of their brain to be able to be creative and to be able to think abstractly and so forth.
The brain is very fascinating, isn't it? That's very, very important. And in addition to that, I've worked for many, many years with students with special needs. And when I was student teaching, I learned an important lesson. We had a student who was fantastic at printmaking, and he could get the concepts of reverse very, very well. And the student teaching supervisor said to me, "Do you think so-and-so is very smart?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, he's having trouble learning to read." So we began to understand the brain back in the 70s, like a little bit more learning. And so I think the point of that story is that children who excel at the arts need it. If they have trouble in the academics, they need that for their self-esteem. That has to be in the school. That really should be in the schools.
No, you're absolutely right. And even if the schools can't necessarily find a dedicated art teacher who they can hire and have on staff, I think there are plenty of outside groups, organizations, individuals like yourself who would be available to come in, whether it's on a per diem basis or even to come in on a free of charge basis. But I'm sure that there are people within the community, if they just go out and look for it, who would be willing to come in and satisfy that.
That's an awesome point. Yes, awesome.
We're always quick to say that it takes a village to raise a child, and you need to look into the resources that you have around you. But we need to start to follow our own advice sometimes.
And yes, and it warms my heart that there's so much more than when I was a child. Fantastic.
Thank you. I know we can have this conversation, or at least I can have this conversation all day long and talking about
Thank you.
In art and how it just infuses and intertwines with each other. But if you had one final thought, one nugget that you would like to leave our audience with, what would that be? And it could even be a plug, if it could be a plug for your website or for your Instagram Live again.
Yes.
What would you like to leave our audience with?
I'd like to leave people with the thought of how important creativity is, and to spend time in some peace and quiet and create anything you love, any subject you love. Just begin, just start. Don't be afraid.
And I think those are excellent words and advice that we can all adhere to and we should all be following. Once again, we'd like to thank our guest, Long Island-based equine artist, host of the video series Pierce the Heart Lessons, Joanne Wayulo Pierce. Thank you for coming on today's show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
My name is Kevin Boston Hill, and thank you all for listening to Instruction Discussion right here on the voice of Nassau Community College Radio, 90.3 WHPC.